Hey guys, so welcome back. I know you wanted an update on what's going on, and there's still a lot of moving parts, and I'm actually kind of nervous now more to give more updates because it kind of feels like it's getting scarier and scarier. I wanted to give you part two of, remember when I said I was going to split up the ongoing updates into three parts because there was just so many moving pieces. This is the mid-investigation police report. This was released on May 27th when the police gave a press conference saying that this is what's been going on, this is what we've been doing, and please trust that we're doing all that we can in the process. Now, this is where the war happens. Paper is the battlefield. This is where everything gets proven, innocence or not, whether you're freed or whether you're going to be investigated even more. Yes, we have the court of public opinion, and the media definitely puts more attention on this so that this battlefield becomes fairer, but everything has to either live as evidence or not in the paper. That's why evidence is so crucial, and that's why this case is a little bit scary because it goes to show you perhaps what lengths people are going to either manipulate or prevent evidence from getting into here. So what we saw is that we started with SJM's dad's blog, and he was just willing to put it out there. He was just willing to put out his thoughts, his feelings, and also some of his suspicions. Then we got a 12-page statement from Mr. A responding to some of the doubts that were out there and also just his straight up testimonial. Then we had SJM's father give out a rebuttal. And then we started seeing a very strange, huge 123-page netizen report. It was like sort of a done in a joking, tongue-in-cheek manner. They said it was an NSI report. That came out around May 15th, and it was circulating around and people were kind of picking it up, and it had a lot of some of the theories that were out there. Some valid and some a little bit crazy, but it was just kind of somebody just posting out there just kind of their thoughts, and he was really bold. He's like, I'll take responsibility for this, and whatever. People just thought it was like whatever, but it started to get a lot of traction in the media around May 25th, and then May 27th the police came out with their own report, and they said that this is what we've been doing, please trust us, we're doing a great job. And for them, they really wanted to give assurance to the public because the public dialogue had become and is still a sense of we can't trust what the police are doing. What the heck are the police doing? From the political side, they're saying, let's hand this over to the prosecution. And then just from the ordinary people side, they just think that there's going to be a crime that's going to be covered up. If you want a copy of this report, I put it on my website, thesoulite.com. It's still in Korean, but if you just want to have it, or if you want to take a look through it, because there are pictures and there's graphs and stuff like that, you can kind of see how the police lay out their progress report on the evidence. And if you just want to have something real from this very real investigation, you can. So it's thesoulite.com. Now, they did have a press conference accompanying this report to give the main highlights. And essentially what they're saying is that they're in the middle of the investigation and that they found no indications that there is any kind of criminal malfeasance on the part of Mr. A. There's no evidence pointing for him to have committed a crime. They also point out that there is the possibility of SJM going into the water. They confirm that he did die by drowning. They also said that they are open to all possibilities and that they are continuing their investigation. Okay, so now let's do the real talk, because this may be a mid-investigation report, but trust, this is essentially a rough draft of the final. Why do I say that? Because if this is a mid-investigation report, that means that findings already have had a stamp of approval by people in the police department. That means people who have their careers on the line. If you overturn some of these findings that already you can see point in one direction, one very clear direction, then if you are that person in that office, in that police station, you're going to be ostracized, you're going to be demoted, you're probably going to suffer the consequences. You have to go along and get along. So if this report indicates that Mr. A is innocent and that it lays down the foundation for SJM to most likely look like he had woken up and walked into the river and drowned himself, then most likely the final report will also say the same. This, like I said, is the battlefield, and your soldiers are the evidence. And so I was always like kind of curious as to why immediately if somebody is accused of a crime, you try to figure out whether you should detain them, essentially like just kind of arrest their body. And why? It's not like, if they're a murderer, they might go out and kill some more people. It's actually so that they don't go out there and destroy evidence. Because evidence essentially is, they're the soldiers in the army, in the paper. Everybody can perhaps see, know what the truth is, but if you don't have evidence, then you cannot let the justice system work. Maybe you can let other systems work, but in terms of like a legal system, you need to have evidence and valid evidence, the strength of the evidence, the visibility of the evidence on the battlefield. Who gets to decide that? You don't get to decide that. Your logic doesn't get to decide that. Your heart doesn't get to decide that. Your feelings about it don't get to decide that. The values of your community do not get to decide that. None of that can decide what evidence is going to win or lose. It's determined by this legal justice system that is different in every country, different in every case, and is really only really known by the lawyers, the judges, and the criminals who have experience working in it day by day. And they know the first thing is, the first absolute thing, what is king on this battlefield is evidence, and the evidence that counts. So that's the other thing. They know the value of what evidence is more important than others, and then go straight to that first and then go off in an order of hierarchy and understand how to play this game. So I know a lot of you in the comments have said that, I hope justice prevails. I hope the truth comes out. I hope in the end everything will work out. And I think, so the belief system there is that there's a battle between the truth and the evidence, that the truth just hasn't shown up yet in the evidence, and that if you just give it enough time or effort, the truth will eventually prevail in the evidence. But unfortunately, it's more of a battle between the evidence, where the truth is, and the destruction and manipulation of the evidence. That's the real game. So if you're going to play on the battlefield of truth versus evidence, you've already lost, because the people who are manipulating the evidence, they've already have control. Of course, the spirit of truth does remain the utmost of importance, to keep attention on a case to make sure that the evidence remains pure and unmanipulated. Because if there's no attention, then it's so easy to then manipulate and hide the evidence. And then you can win as the bad guy. So from this police report, does it look like a report, or does it actually look like it just came from the law offices of the person being accused? And I'll tell you, I've been in a lawsuit in Korea for almost 5 years, and after a while, these things that you send over to the courts back and forth, they start to smell, and you can see what people are doing, the strategies that they're, enacting, and like a lot of it, mainly what does smell the most is what is placed, boom, right in front, and more than that, what is not answered. What is not answered? So like when you had like a test in school and you're like, no, I can't answer this question, but everyone's just like, never leave something blank. You might always get partial credit. It's these partial credit answers that are so manipulative that they just kind of like will fill in the blanks, and it's surprising. That's when you get to see whose side somebody is on. If they accept a partial answer that is totally like, what? You should not even get partial credit, but you're getting extra bonus points for that, then then you start to see where that scent is coming from and whose side someone is on. So if you just leaf through pages 1 through 15, essentially the key highlights is that we're starting off with the premise. That's very important. See where they're going. That the autopsy says that SJM's death was caused by drowning. Right? So no alcohol, no drugs, no fighting, not falling, not any kind of bodily injury, drowning. Then they go over like location of CCTV cameras, the gradation of the water depth, if somebody were to walk in, the location of the key witnesses, and then the summary of what the witnesses said. Look at how witness number one, the dubious witness that we said that may not have even existed because he says he saw both SJM and Mr. A at 3:38 a.m. on the grassy knoll. Yet, he does not even show up in a photo at 3:38 a.m. Neither does SJM show up in that photo taken by witness number 5. So witness number 5 was there at 3:38 a.m., took a photo, and there was only Mr. A there on his phone. And then a couple of the other witnesses, they checked out. So where was witness number 1? Where was SJM? So witness number 1 says that he saw these people, but witness number 1 wasn't even there in this picture. And it was very suspicious how this picture in this report, you can see it, it's really dark. But according to some of those YouTube reporters, they saw a flash go on. So they saw that this was a flash photo, which would have meant that it would have been a very bright photo that was released. So was it purposely darkened? And of course it was a photo of the bridge. I don't know. We would not be here, honestly, if it weren't for that bridge. I don't know who the architect of that bridge was, but I have no idea. I don't think he would have ever guessed that his design would have brought us in the year 2021 to an investigation of a wrongful death. Okay, here's the shocking part. The real shocking part that most people in the media, even mainstream media, they were just like, this in a police report. It starts on page 15. It's essentially the Q&As. And on the surface, if you kind of think like maybe like the police were like, well, we're going to respond to some of the rumors out there, like some of the stuff that's crazy on the internet. Like these netizens, they're crazy. We're going to respond. But what it sounds like, literally, it's as if they kind of handed it over to Mr. A's lawyers. Because, like I said, I have seen these documents go back and forth in a lawsuit, and you can tell like what is done by the other side. You put your side out, the other side puts their side out. It's very slanted in each person's favor and direction. This read like we were in court, and that the Q&A session, so-called Q&A to answer the report, it read like it came from Mr. A's lawyers. So let's go over some of these. So they were defending, well, Mr. A and SJM went on trips together. They were close enough to drink on a random call. And this was confirmed by the police. They drank enough to black out. This was confirmed by the police. The two weren't arguing. When they were running, they weren't fighting. Other friends said that they never saw the two fighting, according to Mr. A's testimony. So then after, they confirmed a few things, but then after they keep answering these questions about the crazy netizens kind of like doubts based on Mr. A's testimony, not based on their analysis or investigation that maybe can include Mr. A's testimony, but then can double fact check source or whatever, police investigators do to verify whether somebody is telling the truth. Don't you need more than one source? I mean, just to even write a newspaper article, you have to check more than one source. So this is a little bit sus too. Mr. A wasn't digging through SJM's pockets. He was trying to shake SJM awake, according to the testimony. Golden refers to Jisoo, the rapper, because before and after they talked about something like perking and J-Park, again, according to the testimony. Mr. A couldn't answer why he took SJM's phone. We're still checking. Mr. A's location data on his own phone showed the last call from the park at 3:38 a.m. and location still present at 7:02 a.m., confirmed by the police. And so what they're saying is that therefore he didn't destroy the phone or take it somewhere else. Now this is where it starts to get a little bit shady as well, because they're trying to answer these questions and they're responding in a way where it favors the defendant by a lot. So people were saying like, well, how do you know he didn't take the phone? And they're like, well, the signal said that the phone was active from 3:38 to 7. Yeah, but what about after 7? But they just ended the response there and made it look like that is enough of an answer to prove that the phone was never kind of taken off premises or destroyed. Next, Mr. A heard through his mother that the phone shut off, so he didn't try calling his phone and he didn't report his phone missing or lost. He activated an unused phone he had at home temporarily with a new number. So they were responding to, well, why didn't he try to find his own phone? Why didn't he try to call his own phone? And then he said like, oh, my mama told me that my phone is gone. So again, it was like, well, that's what he said, so we're going to believe him. Guess sometimes that's all it takes. Okay, keep turning the pages. Now they are going on a full-on knockdown of SJM's father. This is the one thing that a lot of mainstream media were shocked by. You know how we said that SJM's father had posted a picture and said out there that SJM did not like the water. He had this picture of him, SJM, at the beach with his friends, with SJM still having his sneakers on the beach. Well, the police said, well, we have evidence, photo and video, of SJM swimming in an ocean overseas, and we have him playing in a pool here in Korea. And then in the next line, they say, we're continuing the investigation concerning his circumstances of entering the river before his death. Ugh. Like some Korean people joke like, you guys, if you go overseas on vacation, do not take a picture of yourself by the beach because eventually the police might use it as evidence of your suicide. And then other people were like, what does that mean? What is that supposed to mean? Because even people who don't like to swim or aren't good swimmers like to go to a water park because you can wear a life vest and there's like a lazy river and you just like float around. I mean, people who say they don't like to swim like doing those things. You don't want to jump into a river. I mean, a lazy river that's warmed up, yes, but not a river that's, polluted and has eels in it that we found out from the fishermen, supposedly. Okay, they go on. They say there's nothing out of the ordinary to the wounds SJM had to his cheek and the two wounds that he had on the back of his head. It's hard to see these as the causes of his death. Again, right? They're really focusing on that the cause of his death is only because of the drowning. Next, he said there was no reaction to our testing of the stains in the area in question because it looked like there were some blood stains on some rocks. It was not confirmed to be blood stains. Next, they said SJM was not already dead when he was lying down on the picnic mat, referring to that 218 keeled over picture. He was not injected by something by Mr. A. The autopsy showed that he drowned. A blood test and gastric content analysis also showed no noteworthy drugs or poisons in his system. And I'm still hung up over this word noteworthy. It didn't say any. Noteworthy. Next, we've debunked the online conspiracy theory that SJM was moved to a different location by Mr. A and some of these people called his friends. CCTV shows the people in question boarded taxis at different spots at the time of 423 as claimed by a YouTube video. Then why can't we get the, CCTV footage of him boarding a taxi? Mr. A boarding a taxi. Next, netizens have said, well, if SJM had been in an inebriated state and walked into the river on his own, he would have probably had stumbled and fell and had wounds on the front part of his body because it was very rocky, very slippery, and very muddy. So what about that? And so they responded, the National Forensic Service says SJM's socks appear to have the same elements found in the ground from the picnic mat to the riverside area to the 10-meter point in the river. See, so now they're really trying to establish that, look, this guy on his feet had evidence that he walked from the picnic mat into the middle of the river. And then they're trying to tie that to the 440, person who supposedly the fisherman saw walk into the water and say, oh, how refreshing it is. And then they said, except for his own blood, there was nothing out of the ordinary on SJM's clothes. So obviously there was some blood that was happening from the wounds probably on his head. Okay, now this is another extremely alarming assertion that also mainstream media really emphasized, because netizens believe that Mr. A probably went into the water with SJM. Mr. A boarded a taxi at 4:42 a.m. or around then. The driver wasn't able to determine whether he was wet or his clothes were wet, but after his shift, the taxi driver was cleaning the interior of his car, and the back seat where Mr. A had been sitting wasn't wet at all, according to his testimony. How is that supposed to be a legitimate answer? When did he end his shift? How many other people sat in that seat in between Mr. A and the end of his shift? And we also know that the supposed taxi driver didn't have a black box. And so that also puts everything into question, because how many taxis don't have a black box? Is this like taxi number one? Netizens also say that the abrupt testimony of the fisherman is a little bit suspect, like we went over. And so now there's a lot of responses to the fisherman. So I don't know if there's a guilty conscience convicts itself. So they said, oh, well, we've confirmed the entry of 193 cars into the park. So we've confirmed the identity of the 7 fishermen. We interviewed them on May 12th to 13th. Out of the 7, 5 testified that they directly saw the person go into the water. The other 2 heard the person go into the water. We're confident about their testimony according to the forensics of their phone and confirmation of their whereabouts. Okay. So then they addressed the concern of why didn't they try to rescue the swimmer? And they said, well, they told us that they didn't want to rescue the swimmer because it didn't look like a rescue situation. It didn't look like an emergency situation. And yet the person died. Guess it didn't look like an emergency. Then netizens say that the fisherman can't prove that that was SJM. You can say that somebody went into the water and said, ooh, how refreshing it was, but you can't prove that it was SJM. Then the police say that, well, until now, of the 63 missing people of the reports that we have from April 24th, none of them are related to this case. So they are basically implying that, well, none of the missing people are related to this case, and there's only one other missing person, so it must be him. And then they said, we're still trying to confirm the identity of the person who entered the water. Then another response to the fishermen, even though they were far away in the dark. 5 testified they saw, 2 testified they heard. It was a clear day. They were in a spot with unobstructed views. I don't know, what are they doing, selling an apartment by the river? Then next, netizens want to know if we requested analysis of Mr. A's clothes. Well, on May 4th, we received Mr. A's jumper, shorts, socks, and bag. There was no blood or DNA that came back from testing, but they had already been laundered, so it's not possible to do a soil analysis. All right, so we already know that he had thrown away his shoes, his shirt even. Okay, so the jacket, the shorts, the socks, and the bag had been washed. But they did their job. They collected it on May 4th. And remember, all this happened on April 24th to 25th. Okay, so now they're rounding it out, bringing it home with additional defense of suspicions against Mr. A. Mr. A and his family have been cooperative. They've come in for questioning. They've allowed search of their house, their car, their phones. They've agreed to everything. They're not related to people in high positions or any of those people that they're rumored to be related to on the internet. Those police cars that came to a nearby site were responding to a suspected drunk driver. It was registered around 3:30 from the Pangbae Seoul police station. You might want to check where the apartment is of Mr. A. Mr. A was not using SJM's phone. When phones aren't being used, there are automatic background updates and data usage. And it's not possible to differentiate actual user usage from background data usage. I don't know if this is true. Is this true? I think if you really needed to find out, you can totally find out. This is also suspect because they left this in the report. They said the last web and app usage was 1:09 a.m. The last Kakao Talk was 1:24 a.m. But hello, everybody knows Kakao Talk, that messaging app, is an app. Then the last phone call they said was 1:33 a.m. But now we also know that he actually used an actual app to order the food at 1:12 a.m., but there's no mention of that. See, again, if you can't answer a question, you just leave it out. That's the strategy. You just don't say anything about it. So when I saw this, it totally read like when I was reading the other side of when I was involved in that lawsuit. Like, you're just like, dang, they're totally twisting, manipulating the truth, and they're really gaming the system. They know exactly what angle to play, what to leave out. And it's not, at this point, it's not a battle of truth, right or wrong. It's literally a battle of how you win on paper. Which is fine if it's going to be you and the other side, I get, even if it's totally corrupt. But, if it's you and the other side just battling out lawyer to lawyer, and even if the judges, whatever, don't even get me started about the judges. But even in that case, sure. But the police department should not be part of your defense team. And this is why also Korean people are sensitive to this, because they see weaponized governmental agencies And but you guys are in America, like you started seeing that with Trump using the Justice Department to be his lawyers, trying to block some of the investigations. And when you get more of that entrenched, then they start helping out your campaign, and which is what we had even back in 2012, that election that elected President Park Geun-hye. She beat Moon Jae-in, who's now the president, because she weaponized the intelligence agency, our version of the CIA. And so there were rampant kind of accusations during the campaign that she was using like all of the, spies of Korea to kind of kind of do what the Russians were accused of doing, to kind of hack social media and really influence public opinion online and do who knows what else, and try to tip the election in her favor. And then when Moon Jae-in came into office, he went after the spy agency. They just got their head on a stick. I don't know if there was structural changes, but definitely he went after them because he lost that election because of them. Anyhow, so Korean people, unless you are going to totally get an advantage from having the government agency on your side, don't want to have government agencies weaponized for the private benefit of people, because that's an extremely dangerous place to be in a society. Oh, what is that? We're supposed to take a commercial break from our sponsor. I didn't know we had sponsors. We have a sponsor that wants to shut us up. Oh, okay. In exchange for, all right. Well, I guess maybe it's worth a listen. 대한민국의 최초 혁명 법체계 이노베이션 파트너 DHS 덕분 홈쇼핑 TV 온라인 모바일 앱 그것이 덮고 싶으시면 즉시 주문하십시오. Oh, it's a reading. It's a host reading. All right, let's try this. Get ready for the Cover Up Home Shopping Channel Last Mile Delivery Service. What's the point of ordering a crime if you get caught? With the latest innovation at the Panpohan River Park, you can choose the police or the prosecution, whichever fits your needs. Both can manipulate and hide evidence. And don't worry, a care specialist will be there to guide you through cooperation with media, business, and government. Need to steal money? Betray someone? Just order a cover-up. All your dreams are now possible. Successful transactions go to the highest bidder. DHS, the Cover-Up Home Shopping Channel. 그것이 덮고 싶으시면 즉시 주문하십시오. Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know we had a sponsor. Okay, so that is essentially the scariest part of this whole situation. So we don't know exactly the truth. We're not saying that Mr. A is anything right now. We're not ascribing guilt anywhere. But if it is truly a cover-up that is happening in front of our eyes, what this demonstrates is that now Korea has proven a market for murder. Why do I say that? Because there's no use in paying, sounds so bad, right? But you can't have a market for murder, thank God, if you get caught, right? So let's say you order something from Amazon and there's no guarantee that it's going to be delivered to you. So then what's the point? But then if you call Amazon, they say well, you ordered it and it was in our warehouse and it went out. But then you're like, well, what's the point if I never get it, or you can't guarantee it to be delivered on time? But once they guarantee it's going to be there in 2 days, you always have it, then they have completed that market cycle and proven that that is a complete functional market, and boom, you're ordering all the time. If you order a murder and you get caught, well, the murderer can be like, well, the guy's dead, isn't he? You ordered them killed. But then you're like, well, what's the point if I have to go to jail because of it? Right? But then once you are able to complete the circle where you are then guaranteed that you won't get caught, then you have now proven that there is a viable market for murder. So let's say even this was an accident, or it could even be for accidents. It can be for fraud. It could be for a host of things. Anything that needs a cover up suddenly now has a market for it. And that's a scary place to be. And I would say that I think that is at the core of where Korean people are really paying attention to this issue, is that they sense that this is a very big deal. I mean, yes, like, when you're in Korea, you're just like, oh my God, there's like this collective mentality that can really twist itself into ways where it's more of like prejudice or ways to weaponize isolating and, kind of bullying people. But on the other hand, like where I think it's actually kind of like, sometimes I see it almost like magic, is almost like this invisible message that gets sent, like, kind of like bees in a hive, like everybody gets it. And, kind of like when they sense like a common danger that transcends political boundaries, they get it. And they might not be able to even articulate the real underlying cause. Like even for this, they're saying like how horrible it's a kid that, resembles my son that died, or how horrible it seems like there's might be corruption. But really, there's people that die all the time. There's always been corruption. But what's different about this situation is that it looks like now that if this goes through in the way that people are suspecting it is, like a cover-up situation, we have now entered an era where now we can just call up and order murders or whatnot and be assured that we're not going to get caught. I mean, I guarantee you, like half the people protesting, they would probably even admit that they would use this service or know somebody that would, and that's why they're protesting it, because they know that it would totally take off. Like all the people that like have a grudge against, it would be a booming business. I mean, like, I hate to say, well, everybody knows. And I say that because I've never seen one person in Korea ever, no matter what age, political spectrum, gender, any demographic, advocate for gun rights, because they know within 3 months we would not have anybody in the country. And so I think this is a similar scenario. Sure, maybe in the beginning the price could be only high enough for the wealthy, but pretty soon, you never know. And this is not completely off base. Just in 2019, a woman trying to kill her own mother over email, like ordering a hitman, was true. She was sent to jail. This was a whole court case, and it was like a huge scandal. Maybe we'll cover it soon. It's shocking. Right, because no matter how good you think you live your life, I guarantee you there's somebody out there that probably wants you dead when they're having a bad day even. So we do not want to open this Pandora's box. We do not want to just kind of let this thing go and just kind of let this slide under the rug, because it will have big repercussions on society. All right, so that's the update on the police report and why I think it was very important. And I wanted to get it out to you sooner rather than later, because I think the final report is going to come, and I don't think it's going to be much different from the mid-term report, because like I said, it's probably just a rough draft. All right, guys, I'll work on the next update, and as soon as it's out, I'll see you then. Bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.